The morning sky over Seoul turned black without warning. Commander Hyunwoo Park was drinking his coffee when the first reports came in. Massive ships had appeared above every major city on Earth. They were huge, dark things that looked like they were made of metal and something alive at the same time. "Sir, we're getting signals from all over the planet," said his aide, rushing into the command center. "The same ships are everywhere. London, New York, Tokyo, Moscow. They just appeared out of nowhere." Hyunwoo set down his cup and walked to the large screen that showed the sky above the city. The alien ship was so big it covered half the horizon. Strange lights pulsed along its surface like a heartbeat. He had trained for this moment his whole career, but seeing it happen was different than any simulation. Dr. Soo-Jin Kim arrived 20 minutes later, her face pale but determined. She was Earth's best expert on alien life, though until today it had all been theory. "The ships are sending out some kind of energy field," she said, checking her tablet. "It's scanning everything. Our people, our buildings, our technology. Like they're taking inventory," Hyunwoo said grimly. Captain Boram Lee came running into the room, still wearing her flight suit. "Commander, they won't let any of our planes get close. My squadron tried to approach, but there's some kind of barrier around their ships. Our missiles just bounce off." Admiral Jae-sung Cho's voice crackled over the radio from the main military base. "All units, stand ready but do not attack." "We're receiving a transmission. It's coming through every communication system on the planet." The screens around the command center flickered, then showed something that made everyone freeze. The creature on the screen was tall and thin, with skin that looked like dark metal. Its eyes glowed red, and when it spoke, its voice was deep and cold. "People of Earth," the alien said. "I am War Prime Kethvar of the Velthrian hegemony. Your world has been chosen for integration into our empire. You have 72 hours to surrender your governments and military forces. Resistance will result in the destruction of your cities and the enslavement of your survivors." The transmission showed images of other worlds, beautiful planets that were now covered in dark buildings and strange machines. People who looked like different types of aliens working in mines and factories, their eyes empty and hopeless. "We have conquered 47 star systems," Kethvar continued. "No species has ever successfully resisted our forces. Surrender now, and you will be allowed to live as workers in our empire. Refuse, and your children will curse your memory as they serve us in chains." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. 72 hours, Dr. Soo-Jin Kim said quietly. "That's not much time." "It's enough," Hyunwoo said, his voice steady. "Get me a direct line to all military commands worldwide, and patch me through to the United Nations." Over the next few hours, the world's leaders held emergency meetings. Some wanted to surrender immediately. They argued that fighting was hopeless against such advanced technology. Others wanted to negotiate, hoping to get better terms for humanity. But Hyunwoo had been studying the alien ships through Earth's most powerful telescopes and sensors. Dr. Soo-Jin Kim worked beside him, analyzing everything they could detect about the alien technology. "Look at this," she said, pointing to readings on her screen. "Their weapons are powerful, but they're old. Really old. The energy signatures haven't changed in hundreds of years." "What does that mean?" Captain Boram Lee asked. "It means they haven't had to improve their weapons in a long time," Hyunwoo realized. "They've been winning fights so easily that they stopped innovating." Dr. Soo-Jin Kim nodded. "Every species they've conquered must have given up quickly. They've never had to face real resistance." Admiral Jae-sung Cho arrived at the command center as the first day ended. His face was grim. "The UN Security Council is split. Half want to surrender, half want to fight. They're asking for our military assessment." Hyunwoo looked at the alien ship still hanging in the sky outside. Its lights pulsed slowly like it was sleeping, confident, lazy. "Our assessment is simple," he said. "They expect us to roll over like every other species they've encountered. They think we're weak because our technology isn't as advanced as theirs. Aren't we?" Admiral Jae-sung Cho asked. "Maybe," Hyunwoo admitted. "But they don't know about human stubbornness. They don't know that we've spent our entire history fighting each other and getting stronger because of it. They've never met a species that refuses to quit." Captain Boram Lee smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. "So what's the plan, Commander?" "We send War Prime Kethvar a message," Hyunwoo said. "We tell him that humanity doesn't surrender. We don't kneel, and if he wants this planet, he's going to have to fight for every inch of it." Dr. Soo-Jin Kim looked worried. "They'll destroy our cities. Millions will die. Millions will die anyway if we become slaves, Hyunwoo replied. At least this way we die as free people. And maybe, just maybe, we make them pay a price they weren't expecting. As the second day began, Hyunwoo stood before the cameras that would broadcast his message to the alien fleet. Behind him, Earth's military forces prepared for a war they might not win. But they would fight anyway because that's what humans do. War Prime Kethvar, Hyunwoo said, looking directly into the camera. Humanity rejects your ultimatum. We will not surrender. We will not serve. If you want our world, come and take it. Above the city, the alien ship's lights pulsed faster like an awakening predator. But for the first time in 1,000 years, the Velthrian hegemony was about to learn what it meant to face a species that refused to give up. The attack came at dawn on the third day. Captain Boram Lee was already in her fighter when the alien ships opened fire. The first weapons they used were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Living creatures the size of cars dropped from the alien vessels, spreading wings that crackled with energy. All pilots, this is Wing Leader. Boram spoke into her radio. We're seeing biological weapons. Repeat. The aliens are using living creatures as weapons. Lieutenant Taemin Yoon flew beside her in his own fighter. He was young, barely 25, but his reflexes were the best in the squadron. Captain, those things are heading straight for the power plants. Should we intercept? Negative, Boram replied, watching her instruments. Let them get closer. I want to see how they behave. The living weapons moved in perfect formation like a flock of birds. They flew in straight lines toward their targets, never deviating from their path. Boram realized something important. They were programmed, not thinking. All units attack pattern random, she ordered. Don't fly in formation. Don't follow standard procedures. Confuse them. The human fighters scattered in all directions. Taemin dove toward the ground, then suddenly pulled up and spun his fighter in a wild spiral. The living weapon chasing him couldn't adjust to the unpredictable movement and crashed into a building. It worked, Taemin shouted over the radio. The thing couldn't follow my crazy flying. Back at the command center, Commander Hyunwoo Park watched the battle on multiple screens. Dr. Sujin Kim stood beside him, analyzing the alien creatures as the fighters engaged them. They're beautiful, she said, studying a close-up image of one of the bioweapons. But they're designed to fight logical enemies. Enemies who follow patterns and use standard tactics. And we're anything but logical, Hyunwoo said with a grim smile. The second wave of alien attacks came an hour later. This time, the ships released swarms of smaller creatures that looked like metallic insects. They moved faster than the first wave, buzzing through the air toward military bases and communication centers. Colonel Yuri Nam commanded the ground defenses. She watched the swarm approaching her position and made a decision that went against everything in the military handbook. All units, open fire on everything except the targets, she ordered her troops. Ma'am? Her aide asked, confused. Create chaos, Yuri explained. Fill the air with smoke, explosions, and debris. Make it impossible for those things to see their real targets. The human soldiers began firing at empty buildings, abandoned vehicles, and even trees. The air filled with smoke and flying debris. The alien bioweapons, programmed to identify specific targets, became confused in the chaos. Many of them attacked the wrong buildings or simply circled aimlessly. Engineer Haewon Jung was working frantically in her laboratory, trying to understand pieces of alien technology that had been recovered from crashed bioweapons. She was young for such an important job, but her mind worked in ways that impressed even Dr. Sujin Kim. Commander, Haewon called over the radio. I've found something. These bioweapons have a weakness. They communicate with their mothership through a specific frequency. If we can jam that frequency, they'll lose coordination, Hyunwoo finished. Do it. Within minutes, human radio operators began broadcasting white noise on the alien frequency. The effect was immediate. The bioweapons stopped moving in formation and began attacking random targets, including each other. War Prime Kethvar watched the battle from his command ship with growing confusion. His bioweapons were the most advanced in the galaxy. They had conquered planets full of species far more technologically advanced than humans. Yet these primitive beings were somehow neutralizing them. War Prime, his aide reported, we're losing 30% of our first wave forces. The humans are not fighting as expected. How are they fighting? Kethvar demanded. Chaotically, sir. They use no standard tactics. Their movements appear random. Our bioweapons cannot predict their actions. Kethavar had conquered 47 worlds. In every case, the enemy had used logical military strategies. They formed defensive lines, protected key positions, and tried to fight efficiently. The humans were doing none of these things. Send the energy parasites, he ordered. Drain their power systems. They cannot fight without electricity. The third wave looked like glowing jellyfish floating through the air. They attached themselves to power lines, generators, and electrical systems, beginning to drain Earth's energy grid. Within an hour, half the planet was without power. But the humans adapted again. Captain Boram Lee led her fighters in a new type of attack. Instead of using their advanced targeting systems, the pilots switched to manual controls and began ramming the energy parasites with their wings. This is insane, Taemin said as he scraped another parasite off a power line with his fighter's wing. Insane works, Boram replied, spinning her fighter to dislodge a parasite that had attached itself to her hull. They're not programmed to deal with kamikaze tactics. Dr. Soo-Jin Kim made another crucial discovery as the first day of fighting ended. Commander, I've been analyzing the alien ship movements. They're beautiful, but they're predictable. They follow formation protocols that haven't changed in centuries. Show me, Hyunwoo said. On the main screen, Soo-Jin displayed the alien fleet's movement patterns. Look here. They maintain perfect spacing. They never deviate from optimal positions. It's efficient, but it means we can predict where they'll be, Hyunwoo realized. The next morning brought the fourth wave of attacks. This time Kethavar sent down mechanical warriors. They were tall, heavily armored robots that moved with deadly precision, but Colonel Yuri Nam was ready for them. Remember, she told her troops, don't try to outfight them. Outsmart them. The human soldiers used tactics no military academy had ever taught. They pretended to retreat, then doubled back. They hid in sewers and attacked from below. They used children's toys as decoys and set traps with household items. One group of soldiers led a squad of robot warriors into a shopping mall, then brought down the entire building on top of them. Another team used mirrors to confuse the robots' targeting systems. By the end of the first week of fighting, something impossible was happening. Earth was still free. The humans had lost thousands of fighters and soldiers, but they had also destroyed alien weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds. War Prime Kethvar stared at the reports from his commanders. For the first time in 1,000 years, a Valthrian invasion was not going according to plan. How many bioweapons have we lost? He asked. 43%, War Prime. And how many human forces have we destroyed? Approximately 20%. Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. The humans were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to surrender or die quickly. Instead, they were learning, adapting, and becoming more dangerous with each passing day. Prepare the second fleet, he ordered. We need reinforcements. But even as he gave the order, Kethvar wondered if more ships would be enough. The humans fought like no species he had ever encountered. They fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And somewhere deep in his mind, a thought began to form that he had never had before. What if we cannot win this war? 3 months into the war, engineer Haiwon Young made a discovery that changed everything. She was working in her underground laboratory, surrounded by pieces of destroyed alien bioweapons, when she noticed something strange about their construction. Dr. Kim, she called to Soo-Jin, who was examining another specimen, look at this cellular structure. These bioweapons aren't just alive, they're designed to evolve, but only in predetermined ways. Soo-Jin hurried over to look at Haewon's microscope. What she saw made her gasp. The genetic code is locked into specific patterns. They can adapt, but only within limits set by their creators. Which means they can't truly evolve, Haewon said excitedly. They can't develop completely new abilities. But we can. Commander Hyunwoo Park listened to their report with growing excitement. Are you saying we can create weapons that evolve during battle? Better than that, Haewon replied. We can create weapons that learn from the aliens and use their own technology against them. The first hybrid human-alien weapon was tested a week later. It looked like a regular missile, but inside was living alien tissue that had been reprogrammed by Haewon's team. When it hit an alien bioweapon, instead of exploding, it infected the creature and turned it against its own kind. Captain Boram Lee, now promoted to wing commander, watched in amazement as one of the alien's own creatures began attacking the others. Did that thing just switch sides? It's following new programming, Dr. Soo-Jin Kim explained over the radio. We're teaching it to recognize alien bioweapons as enemies instead of allies, but the real breakthrough came when Major In-ho Kang proposed something that seemed impossible: capturing an entire alien command ship. In-ho was a special forces officer who had earned his reputation in Earth's last war. He was quiet, deadly, and had never failed a mission, but even his fellow soldiers thought his plan was suicide. Wait for one of their ships to drop low. Enough for a boarding action, he explained to Commander Hyun-woo Park. My team uses the hybrid weapons to disable their biodefenses. Then we fight our way to their command center. Major, their ships are living fortresses, Admiral Jae-sung Cho argued. They're designed to kill any invader. They're designed to kill logical invaders, In-ho corrected. But we won't be logical. We'll be human. The opportunity came during the aliens' next major assault. A Velthrian command ship dropped into Earth's atmosphere to coordinate an attack on the military base in Australia. In-ho and his team of 12 soldiers launched themselves from a high-altitude transport in modified spacesuits. They landed on the alien ship's hull and immediately faced the ship's immune system. Living defenders emerged from the ship's surface, creatures that looked like walking nightmares with too many teeth and claws. But In-ho's team was ready. They used the hybrid weapons that adapted to each new threat. When the ship's defenders grew thicker armor, the weapons developed armor-piercing capabilities. When the creatures became faster, the weapons became more accurate. Team 2, use the confusion grenades, In-ho ordered as they fought their way deeper into the ship. The grenades released a combination of human technology and alien bioagents that made the ship's nervous system malfunction. Dr. Yoon-seo Hwang, the team's cybernetics expert, worked frantically to interface with the alien ship's control systems. She had developed technology that allowed her to connect directly with alien biocomputers using her own modified nervous system. "I'm in," she announced, her eyes glowing with the same energy as the alien controls. Their command structure is incredibly complex, but it's all based on dominance hierarchies. If I can convince the ship that we're the dominant species. The ship suddenly stopped fighting them. Its biodefenders stepped aside and its passages opened to guide them toward the command center. In-ho's team had done the impossible. They had convinced an alien warship that humans were its masters. War Prime Kethvar was in his personal chambers when the reports reached him. One of his command ships had been captured. Not destroyed, captured. In all the history of the Velthrian hegemony, no enemy had ever successfully boarded and taken control of one of their vessels. How many humans were involved in this boarding action? He demanded. 12, War Prime. 12? Kethvar could not believe it. A dozen primitive beings had overcome biodefenses that had repelled armies. War Prime. We're receiving a transmission from the captured ship. The screen showed Commander Hyun-woo Park standing in the alien command center. Behind him, human soldiers worked alongside captured alien crew members, who seemed to be helping them understand the ship's systems. War Prime Kethvar, Hyun-woo said. We need to talk. You will return my ship immediately, Kethvar demanded. Actually, we won't, Hyun-woo replied calmly. Because your crew has told us some very interesting things, like how your empire has been stagnant for centuries, how you've forgotten how to fight a real war because every species you've encountered has surrendered quickly. Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in his long life. Fear. What do you want? We want you to leave our solar system, Hyun-woo said. But more than that, we want to free every species you've enslaved. Because that's what humans do. We help the oppressed fight their oppressors. The transmission ended, leaving Kethvar staring at a blank screen. Around him, his advisors whispered in panic. The humans had not just resisted conquest. They were talking about liberating the entire hegemony. Back on the captured ship, Dr. Soo-Jin Kim was learning incredible things from the alien prisoners. They weren't evil, she realized. They were afraid. Their society had become so focused on conquest and control that they had forgotten how to innovate or grow. They've been using the same tactics for 1,000 years, she explained to In-ho and his team. Every species they've conquered has given up quickly. They've never had to adapt or evolve their strategies. But we have, In-ho said, understanding the implications. Every battle makes us stronger. Every challenge forces us to become better. Lieutenant Tae Min-yoon, who had been promoted to squadron leader, led the first flight of hybrid human-alien fighters. The new ships combined human creativity with alien biotechnology, creating vessels that could literally evolve during combat. "It's like flying a living thing," he reported during his first mission. "The ship learns from every maneuver, every enemy it faces. By the end of the battle, it's twice as effective as when we started." Engineer Haiwan Jung continued developing new weapons at an incredible pace. Every alien technology they captured was improved and turned against its creators. She had become Earth's most valuable scientist, but she remained humble about her achievements. "We're not winning because we're smarter than them," she told a gathering of human commanders. "We're winning because we refuse to stay the same. Every day we become something new, something better." As the third month of war ended, the situation in space had completely changed. Human forces were no longer just defending Earth. They were actively hunting alien ships throughout the solar system. More importantly, they were broadcasting messages to every enslaved world in the hegemony. The message was simple: humans were coming to help. The age of Velthrian dominance was ending, and somewhere in the depths of space, on planets that had been enslaved for centuries, other species began to hope for the first time in generations. The impossible was happening. Someone was actually winning a war against the hegemony. War Prime Kethavar called for reinforcements from the hegemony's core worlds. But for the first time in Velthrian history, some of his commanders refused the call. They were afraid to face the humans, afraid of what these adaptable, relentless beings might do to them. The hunters had become the hunted, and neither side was prepared for what would come next. 6 months after the first alien ship appeared over Earth, Wing Commander Bo-Ram Lee led a fleet of hybrid human-alien vessels toward the outer planets. The ships looked nothing like traditional human designs. They were alive, breathing, and learning with every passing moment. "Target acquired," reported Squadron Leader Taemin Yoon, flying beside her in his own bioship. "Velthrian mining operation on Europa. Looks like they're harvesting resources for their war effort." "Not anymore," Bo-Ram replied. "All units, attack formation chaos. Show them what we've learned." The human ships didn't approach in neat formations like traditional military forces. Instead, they scattered in seemingly random patterns, each vessel taking a different approach to the target. The alien defenders tried to predict their movements and failed completely. The Velthrian bioships guarding the mining operation had been programmed to fight logical enemies. They expected attack formations, predictable tactics, and conventional strategies. What they got was pure human creativity unleashed through alien technology. Taemin's ship suddenly split into 3 smaller vessels, each one attacking from a different angle. Another pilot's ship changed its shape entirely, becoming a long, snake-like creature that wrapped around an alien defender and crushed it. A third human vessel simply disappeared from all sensors, then reappeared inside the enemy formation. "How are they doing that?" demanded Subcommander Veltar, watching his defenses crumble from his command ship. "Unknown," his tactical officer replied. "Their ships appear to be evolving in real time. Each vessel is becoming something different." Back on Earth, Admiral Jae-Sung Cho coordinated with military leaders across the solar system. What had started as a desperate defense of one planet had become something much larger, a campaign to liberate every world under Velthrian control. Dr. Mi-young Seo had joined the team 3 months earlier as Earth's new specialist in psionic warfare. She had discovered that many alien species had mental abilities that the Velthrians had been suppressing for centuries. "The key is communication," she explained to the War Council. "Every species the hegemony conquered had abilities that could threaten Velthrian control, so they developed technology to block those abilities." "And we can reverse that process?" asked Commander Dong-hyun Oh, Earth's newest naval tactical specialist. "Better than that," Mi-young smiled. "We can amplify those abilities, give the enslaved species weapons they didn't even know they had." The first liberated world was Kepler 442b, a planet inhabited by a species called the Thylorians. They had been enslaved for over 300 years, working in Velthrian factories and mines. When the human fleet arrived, the Thylorians didn't even resist. They thought it was just another conquest. Major In-ho Kang, now promoted to colonel, led the ground forces that landed on the planet. His soldiers carried hybrid weapons and translation devices that Dr. Sujin Kim had developed from captured alien technology. "We're not here to conquer you," Inho announced to the confused Thylorians. "We're here to free you." The Thylorian leader, an elderly being named Zephlyon, stared at the human soldiers in disbelief. "Free us? No one has ever freed a world from the hegemony." "No one human has tried before," Inho replied. "But that's what we do. We help people who can't help themselves." Dr. Mi Young Seo's psionic amplifiers were tested on the Thylorians for the first time. The results were extraordinary. The alien species discovered they could communicate telepathically across vast distances, an ability the Violthrians had been blocking for centuries. Within hours, every Thylorian on the planet knew that humans had come to liberate them. More importantly, they used their restored telepathic abilities to contact other enslaved worlds throughout the galaxy. The news spread like wildfire. A species called humans had defeated Velthrian forces and was actively freeing enslaved worlds. For the first time in centuries, hope began to spread through the hegemony. War Prime Kethvar received the reports with growing panic. The humans weren't just winning battles. They were inspiring rebellion across his entire empire. Worlds that had been docile for hundreds of years were suddenly rising up against their Velthrian overseers. "War Prime," his aide reported nervously. "We're losing contact with 17 systems. The enslaved populations are revolting." "Send the pacification fleets," Kethvar ordered. "War Prime, some of our fleet commanders are refusing orders. They say the humans are too dangerous to face." For the first time in his 1,000-year life, Kethvar felt true fear. His empire was crumbling, not because of superior technology or overwhelming force, but because of something he didn't understand: the human concept of freedom. Back in Earth's solar system, engineer Haewon Young was working on her most ambitious project yet. Using technology from dozens of liberated worlds, she was building ships that could carry entire armies across the galaxy in a matter of days. "The Velthrians have been using the same transportation technology for centuries," she explained to Admiral Jae-Sung Cho. "But the species they conquered had developed faster, more efficient methods. The hegemony suppressed those innovations to maintain control." "How much faster?" the Admiral asked. "A trip that takes the Velthrians 6 months would take us 6 days, Haewon said with a grin. The first major battle of humanity's galactic campaign took place at a Velthrian fortress world called Nexus Prime. It was the administrative center for an entire sector of the hegemony, protected by the largest fleet the aliens had ever assembled. Commander Hyunwoo Park, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, led the human forces personally. His flagship was a massive bioship that had been grown rather than built, incorporating the best technology from a dozen liberated species. "Admiral," reported Captain So-Yeon Kim, his new communications officer. "We're detecting over 300 Velthrian vessels defending the system." "And how many ships do we have?" Hyunwoo asked. 57, sir. But they're all hybrid vessels with full evolution capability." "Then we have them outnumbered," Hyunwoo said calmly. "Remember, it's not about the size of the fleet. It's about adaptability." The battle for Nexus Prime lasted 3 days. The Velthrian fleet fought with the same tactics they had used for 1,000 years: organized formations, predictable strategies, and overwhelming firepower. The human fleet responded with pure chaos. Ships changed shape during combat, splitting apart and recombining in new configurations. Weapons evolved in real time, adapting to each enemy they faced. Most remarkably, the human vessels began working together in ways that seemed impossible, as if they shared a collective intelligence. Dr. Yunseo Huang, now serving as the fleet's cybernetics coordinator, had made the breakthrough that enabled this cooperation. "The bioships can actually communicate with each other," she explained. "They share information instantly, learning from every encounter and passing that knowledge to the entire fleet." By the end of the 3rd day, the Velthrian fleet was in full retreat. For the first time in their history, they had been decisively defeated in a major fleet engagement. Even worse for them, the human victory had been broadcast to every world in the sector. The psychological impact was devastating. Species that had never dreamed of resisting the hegemony suddenly realized that the supposedly invincible Velthrians could be beaten. Rebellions erupted on dozens of worlds. Sub-Commander Veltar, one of the few Velthrian officers to survive the battle, sent a desperate message to his superiors. The humans don't fight like any enemy we've ever faced. They adapt faster than our bioweapons. They cooperate better than our hive minds. And worst of all, they give hope to every species they encounter. War Prime Kethvar realized that his empire was facing something unprecedented, an enemy that made everyone around them stronger. The humans didn't just defeat Velthrian forces, they turned former slaves into allies, suppressed abilities into weapons, and despair into hope. "Prepare the core fleet," he ordered. "We're going to Earth. If we destroy their homeworld, maybe the rebellion will die with it." But even as he gave the order, Kethvar knew he was no longer fighting to expand his empire. He was fighting for its survival, and deep in his mind, a terrible thought began to form. What if it was already too late? 1 year after the first alien ship appeared over Earth, Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of the Harmony, humanity's first truly galactic command vessel. Through the viewing ports, he could see the combined fleet of the Terran Federation, ships from dozens of species, all united under the banner of freedom. "Admiral," reported Captain Soyeon Kim, "we're receiving confirmation from all task forces. The Liberation fleets are in position throughout Velthrian space." "And the response from the core worlds?" Hyunwoo asked. "Mixed, sir. Some are laying down arms and requesting peaceful integration into the Federation. Others are preparing for a final battle." Dr. Soo-Jin Kim, now serving as Earth's chief diplomatic officer, approached the Admiral with the latest reports. "The Thylorians have successfully liberated 12 systems using the psionic networks we helped them rebuild. The Zalakians are using their restored bioengineering abilities to heal worlds damaged by centuries of Velthrian exploitation." "What about casualties?" Hyunwoo asked. "Surprisingly low," Soo-Jin replied. "Most Velthrian forces are surrendering rather than fighting. Their empire was built on the idea that resistance was impossible. Now that we've proven that wrong, many of them don't see the point in continuing." General Bo-Ram Lee, who now commanded the Federation's combined military forces, joined them on the bridge. She had changed over the past year, becoming not just a military leader but a symbol of hope for oppressed species across the galaxy. "The final assault fleet is ready," she reported. "But I have to ask again, are we sure about attacking the Velthrian homeworld? We could just contain them, wait for their government to collapse." "We could," agreed President Min-ho-sun, who had been elected as Earth's representative to the new Terran Federation Council. "But as long as their leadership remains intact, they'll keep trying to rebuild their empire. Sometimes you have to cut off the head of the snake." The journey to the Velthrian homeworld took only 3 days, using the advanced transportation technology that engineer Haewon Jung had perfected. The Federation fleet was a sight to behold. Thousands of ships that represented the combined knowledge and abilities of 50 different species. War Prime Kethvar watched their approach from his fortress on the planet's surface. Around him, the last loyalist forces of the hegemony prepared for what they knew would be their final battle. "How many ships are they bringing?" he asked his aide. "Our sensors are having difficulty counting them, War Prime. The bioships keep changing configuration and some of the vessels appear to exist partially outside normal space." "And our forces?" 200 ships, War Prime. All that remain loyal to the hegemony." Kethvar looked out at the approaching fleet and realized that numbers no longer mattered. The humans had turned warfare into an art form, combining the abilities of dozens of species into something greater than the sum of its parts. The battle began not with weapons fire, but with a transmission. Fleet Admiral Hyunwoo Park appeared on every screen in the Velthrian system. "People of the hegemony," he said, "this is your final chance to surrender peacefully. We don't want to destroy you. We want to free you from a system that has kept your own people enslaved by fear and tradition." Many Velthrian ships immediately powered down their weapons and signaled surrender, but Kethvar and his core loyalists chose to fight. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. The Federation fleet didn't just attack, it demonstrated. Every tactic they used, every weapon they deployed, was designed to show the watching Velthrian population that their leader's way of war was obsolete. Squadron leader Tai Min-yoon now commanding his own task force, led a group of ships that had been designed by liberated Arcturian engineers. The vessels could phase in and out of normal space, appearing behind enemy lines and disappearing before retaliation was possible. Colonel In Ho Kang directed ground forces that included soldiers from 20 different species, each contributing unique abilities. Thylorian telepaths coordinated attacks instantly across vast distances. Zalakian bioengineers turned the planet's own ecosystem against the Valthrian fortresses. Human special forces adapted and improvised with every changing situation. Dr. Mi Young, CO's psionic warfare specialist, did something unprecedented. They began broadcasting the thoughts and feelings of liberated peoples directly into the minds of Valthrian citizens. For the first time, the oppressors could feel what their victims had experienced for centuries. The psychological impact was devastating. Valthrian civilians began demanding that their leaders surrender. Many military units laid down their arms rather than continue fighting for a cause they no longer believed in. War Prime Kethavar made one final desperate attempt to turn the tide. He activated an ancient weapon buried deep in the planet's core, a device designed to destroy entire star systems. If he couldn't save his empire, he would take his enemies with him, but Dr. Yun Xiao Huang had anticipated this possibility. Using her cybernetic interfaces, she connected directly to the planet's computer systems and began a battle for control that took place entirely in cyberspace. The weapon is powered by the planet's bio-network, she reported to Admiral Hyunwoo Park. But that network has been corrupted by centuries of suppressing other species' abilities. If I can restore the natural connections, working with liberated Valthrian scientists who had secretly opposed their government for years, Yun Seo managed to turn the planet's own systems against the ancient weapon. Instead of destroying the star system, the device released a wave of energy that restored suppressed abilities to every species in the galaxy. The effect was immediate and profound. Across thousands of worlds, people who had forgotten their natural gifts suddenly remembered what they could do. The hegemony's control was broken not by force, but by the return of hope and ability to its victims. Kethavar stood in his command center as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. His empire was gone, not conquered, not destroyed, but transformed into something he couldn't understand. A voluntary alliance of free peoples. War Prime, one of his few remaining aides, said quietly. Admiral Park is requesting permission to come aboard. Kethavar nodded wearily. Let him come. When Hyunwoo Park entered the Valthrian command center, he came alone and unarmed. He looked at the being who had once threatened to enslave all of humanity and felt not hatred but pity. It's over, Hyunwoo said simply. Yes, Kethavar replied. But what happens now? Your people will want revenge for what we tried to do to you. Actually, no, Hyunwoo said, surprising the alien leader. We want something much more difficult than revenge. We want you to learn to be free. Over the following months, the Valthrian homeworld was transformed. The oppressive government structures were dismantled, replaced by democratic institutions based on the Federation model. Valthrian scientists, freed from military applications, began working to heal the damage their empire had caused. Many Valthrians joined the Federation willingly, bringing their advanced biotechnology to peaceful purposes. Others chose to rebuild their society in isolation, which the Federation respected as their right. Dr. Sujin Kim established the Galactic Rehabilitation Institute, designed to help former oppressor species learn to live in a free society. The hardest part, she explained to President Min Ho-sun, isn't defeating tyrants. It's teaching their victims and their supporters how to live without tyranny. Engineer Hai Wan-jung became the Federation's chief technology officer, coordinating research that combined the knowledge of hundreds of species. The innovations that emerged in the years following the war advanced galactic civilization by thousands of years. 5 years after the war ended, Admiral Hyunwoo Park stood once again on the bridge of a starship. But this time he was looking at Earth from space, watching as the planet served as the capital of a galactic federation of free worlds. Hard to believe it all started with one alien ultimatum, said General Bo-Ram Lee, joining him at the viewing port. Maybe it was always inevitable, Hyunwoo replied. The Valthrians built their empire on the idea that some species are naturally superior to others. But they forgot the most important truth in the universe, which is that no one is truly free until everyone is free. And once people taste freedom, they'll fight for it with everything they have. The Terran Federation continued to grow, not through conquest, but through invitation. Species that had never imagined alternatives to oppression reached out to join an alliance based on mutual respect and shared growth. Earth, the small blue planet that had once faced extinction, became known throughout the galaxy as the world that proved tyranny could be defeated, not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through the simple, revolutionary idea that all thinking beings deserve to be free. And in the depths of space, on worlds still struggling against their own oppressors, people looked toward Earth and whispered the words that had become the Federation's motto: "Humanity came for us." They showed us that resistance is not only possible, it's our duty. The rise of Terran power was complete, but it was a power unlike any the galaxy had ever seen, a power that grew stronger by lifting others up, rather than pushing them down. It was perhaps the most human thing of all.